Good morning, good morning, good morning. Wanted to say good afternoon. It's getting so warm outside and the sun is shining. It feel like it's afternoon, but hello everybody. I know we got people that's gonna start checking in. Welcome to Access Denied. We got a special access denied for you today. So get ready for it. But before we really get into our special guest, we're going to talk about some of the things on the landscape of public education, what's going on. And so as you come in, I see we got a few people signing in. Like, let us know you here. Tell us good morning. Like, share, and put it in special groups. But I am going to get this thing cranked up. Let's see. And I'll tell you guys as we get ready to go in. So the special guest that we got coming in a little bit later is none other than Mr. Vencen Horsley. We're going to get him in, I want to say in about 15 minutes or a little earlier. But Vencen, the special thing about him, like one being a Nashville native, but he may consider himself as a Davidson County native. Grew up in Old Hickory, attended our county schools here, but he also had the unique experience to participate in the civil rights movement as a young man. And not only did he participate, but he stayed around and he kept fighting even after most thought the fight was over. And so as we check in, just be ready for it. See, we got Rhea checking in. We got Thomas Driver checking in. Go on and share and let us know you're here. And then I'm going to work signing a little bit on getting our special guests on in.
All right. Hey, y'all. There. Look on there. I tell you, look who we have here. I am so excited right now. Good morning, everybody. As John said, we've got a special guest. What's special about our guest is he understands the fight. And for me, I understand and understand and appreciate those who have come before us and to be in the presence. To be in the presence of someone who has been a part of our history, who has paved the way for folk like myself. Those of you guys who are listening, you understand that we're a whole movement. But there were movements that were built before Nashville Propel. Some of you are familiar with civil rights movements, but there's one in particular, the lunch counter sit-ins, that has always been powerful to me to read those stories. And so today, as John said, we have a special guest, Mr. Vencen Horsley. Thank you for joining us. How you doing, Mr. Horsley? Oh, you're on mute. John, can you unmute him? Or he has to do it on his side. Touch the bottom of your screen, and then you'll see the little microphone. There you go.
Okay. There we go.
It's my pleasure.
We are so excited to have you here. I had a chance to talk to you yesterday for an extensive time to kind of get to know you. I've read a lot about you. I'm gonna tell you how I found out about you. We were on something on Facebook. We were honoring Dr. King, and someone who knows you mentioned your name. I didn't know your story. And so I went and I looked for myself, and I made a commitment to that person. I can't remember who it was, that I made sure that I honor you. And today we honor you. But I want you to tell, just to take a few minutes just to introduce yourself. Like, give us your story. Like, who are you? How many children do you have? What happened back in the 60s?
Well, one of the things is I feel comfortable talking about other people and some of the wonderful things that I have learned from other people than talking about myself. But I grew up in the county part of Davidson County. It was a community, it was called State Land, which was really part of Old Hickory. I went to public schools. It was a school, it was called Stateland Elementary School. It was a small building where first through eighth graders attended, and it was one room. At times the seventh and eighth graders would help out the first and second graders. So after eighth grade, most of the students in this area would go to Haynes High School. But I eventually transferred to Pearl High School, and I graduated from Pearl in a class of 1962. But I consider myself a Nashvilleian. I became interested in what people want to consider the movement in the late 50s. A great man and a great friend of mine, Mr. A.C. Kelly, was attempted to desegregate the schools in Davidson County. This was following the 1954 desegregation that says that it was unlawful to have a segregated policy that would prevent Black students from going to schools that were predominantly white. But there was a lot of opposition to that. And I always encouraged him, and certainly was encouraged by him, that his efforts to continue on. Many families would say that I don't want to be a part of that. I don't want to place my children in danger. So from 1954 until 1957, Mr. Kelly just continued, and they started the school desegregation a year at the time. You know, first grade, and then the second grade and on. So I was really inspired so much by Mr. A.Z. Kelly. Then in 1960s, I became aware of a group of students that had gathered in Nashville, was led by James Lawson. He was training and trying to gather a group of young people, primarily young people, to become what would be considered the sit-in movement. After weeks of training, they returned to Nashville, and they became involved in the sit-ins in the downtown Nashville. But with all of that, I would keep in mind that the sit-ins was not primarily about desegregating restaurants and establishments. It was about addressing the issue of legal segregation. As I said, I grew up in a community where it was all, not only was segregation reality, it was also legal. It was illegal to make a difference in the race of individuals. But soon the waters that had flowed so calmly between the great divide in the community as well as the nation become troubled. This is when the the sit-ins that started in 1960. And I was so impressed with to see some of these people involved, and I wanted to become a part of it. And so because I didn't have the training, they would say, you can't be a part of that. You can't do this. And I would see them being pushed around and knocked around. And I just couldn't wait to have an opportunity to be a part of it. So in 1962, this was a year after. In 1961, some of the same individuals that was involved in the Nashville sit-ins became a part of what was called the Freedom Rides. And so following the Freedom Riders, there was sort of a slow period in Nashville because some of the students that was involved in the sit-ins in the 60s and the Freedom Rides in 61s, some of them had left school, some would have gone elsewhere. So in 1962, I became aware that there was going to be a gathering of all as many of the individuals that were involved in the sit-ins in the 60s, and also the Freedom Rides gathered at First Baptist Church, Capitol Hill. And in that, it was over 200 and 250 individuals. And I attended that. And I was that was one of the most exciting times of my life, to be there and to be a part of this gathering. And in this gathering, it was decided that John Lewis, a student at Fisk University here, would be the chairman of it. So after the conference, the next week, it was about 5 of us. John Lewis, Lester McKinney, who was a student at Tennessee State, Elizabeth Harbor, who now is Elizabeth McLean, who I think she said she was retiring. She was a professor out at TSU. And her brother, Bill Harbor, was one of the original individuals in the sit-ins as well as the Freedom Rides. Nathan Winters, who was another young man that was a student at Tennessee State. And with the 5 of us we would march downtown, and it was 2 particular places that we would protest. And that was the B&W at Cross Keys. And so that just continued on in late 1962, and soon more and more students would become involved. Then as we went further into it, people would come and they would get discouraged because they'd start arresting, and people had their own reasons why they didn't want to get arrested. Some was afraid they would get put out of school. But that was never a concern of mine. I was still really determined that I wanted to follow in the footsteps of so many people that was before me. The James Bevel, the Diane Nash, the John Lewis, Rip Patton, Matthew Walker. All of those became household names to me. Not, mentioning some of the national leaders. Everyone would talk about Martin Luther King and the people, Roy Wilkins of NAACP and all of those individuals. But I was just excited to be associated with those individuals that I could just shake hands with and listen to them tell their stories. Then
Mr.
yes.
Mr. Horsley, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I do have a question. Did you experience in this fight, like, did you experience any bodily harm? Like, I heard you just say that you weren't afraid, like, to go to jail and all those things, but I can imagine how dangerous that was during that time.
Yes. Matter of fact, I used to be teased by some of the people in the city, and boy, they're coming after you. I guess I was arrested 8 or 9 times and was beaten. I remember 2 concussions. One person that I will always remember him was David Kolchuk. David was a student at Vanderbilt. Was a white gentleman, was a student at Vanderbilt. Was there, and he received so many beatings. And there was 2 places that you really knew that you were going to get knocked around. It was called the Candyland. It was another place that was close to it that you knew that you were going to get beaten. One place that, I guess it made news. I think it was in Jet magazine this time that I was beaten at the Hermitage Hotel. There was when I was thrown in one window of glass and then out the other, which I was cut up then, and that was a time that was really was talked about for a long time in Nashville. Y'all remember that incident? But all of that didn't discourage me. We just get up and we just move on. I would see so many younger people that would really willing to place themselves in what was considered harm's way. It was a time when John Lewis became active in with the Southern Christian Leadership Council, and he was spending a lot of times in Atlanta. And Lester McKinney was more or less doing what he was doing in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
And so then Lester said that, look, I'm trying to get out of TSU. And so Reverend Kelly Miller Smith and the Reverend
Mm-hmm.
Andrew White said, Vincent, why don't you do it? And so I started going around to young people in high schools, and if I would see kids, I don't care what look like. Some of them look like they should have been in daycare. If I would see some young person, I would tell them about the sit-ins.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't long before it was over 200 and 300 people would show up on Saturdays. And then not only on Saturdays, but during the week, I guess they wouldn't go to school. They would come downtown to be a part of the sit-ins.
The movement, to be a part of the movement.
right, part of the movement. But I would tell them, if you don't know why you participate, you don't know why you're marching, don't.
Mm.
And so, and we would get that, we would try and get that, let them know that you are this is part of a movement. This is for your grandparents and your grandparents' parents. That also this is for you. This is going to be for you and for your children and your children's children. So it's a whole lot really that was when every lick that you would take, every day that you would spend in jail, it was purpose driven. You know, I have said some of the best meetings that we would have would be in jail. You know, we would talk about, you know, that was just a strategy meeting when we were inside the jail cell.
Wow. I'm in tears. To hear some of the names that you are mentioning, Dr. Kelly, Dr. Walker, it's just such an honor to have you here, to have this. I was just sitting here thinking, listening to you talk, how we have this moment of you telling this story on video and how it will forever be something that we can keep to share with people. And we appreciate you being here today, talking to our parents. I just have so much respect for you.
Well, and I think all of those people, the Reverend Andrew White was a wonderful man, and Reverend Braden, and all the people that they weren't necessarily household names, but they are people that's always would be dear to my heart. A.C. Kelly and all those individuals were heroes. They were people that I felt honored to get to know them.
Well, we have the streets and things named after like A.C. Kelly. Like when I think about people that are younger than me, like we pass over these different roads and streets and things, not even knowing the history behind who that person was. So I think it's important, like in this very moment, that you're telling these stories about these people, because I'm sure some of the parents, we got a lot of parents that are young, like just to hear somebody who has walked, who has marched, who has built a movement alongside these people. It is, it's historical in itself.
Yeah, and Mr. Horsley, let me backtrack just on one thing you said, which was powerful to me. You said if they didn't know why they were marching, if they didn't know why they were, participating in civil disobedience, we told them to stay home. Like, why was that? Why was it important for them to know what they were walking into?
See, the movement wasn't confined to being able to go in McDonald's and to eat. It was more than just eating in a restaurant or even going to a theater. See, that was a concern of a lot of Black people. And I understood that. But it was breaking down a barrier of segregation, the same thing that was keeping them from being able to enjoy themselves socially was the same thing that was keeping them from getting the type of jobs that they would need, that they would deserve. So I was proud in 1964 when the President Johnson signed the Civil Rights Bill that made it illegal to discriminate people in places of employment in some housing because of the race. So, but it was a long time before I even would go to some of those same restaurants, because one of the consequences of desegregation, it had an impact on Black business. The places up in Jefferson Street is the more accessible white-owned business. People become ignored Black-owned business. The Ritz Theater closed down. Pinnacle Lane's bowling alley closed down, and all those places that it was difficult for Black business, and not only in Nashville, but that was throughout the country. So that was I wouldn't say a result of desegregation, but that's what happened when people began to become part of really desegregating the white business. We use that term, Black Lives Matter. So that's very general, but we need to be more specific and say Black business matter, Black schools matter. Those things that Black people can be a part of, those still matter. TSU still matter. Fish matter. American Baptist matter. All those in the schools that continue, that served a purpose, a great purpose for many years, still matter. And yes, I enjoy being able to go to the restaurant of my choice, or the theater of my choice. But at the same time, I choose to continue to make an effort to patronize Sweats, Prince's Hot Chicken, and some of the other places here in Nashville. And I think that we need to do more of that in order to really to make out, to make the Black community matter.
Yes, sir. And so one thing that I'll go into, I mean, when you talked about Stateland Elementary, I looked it up. The Tennessean had an article when the school was built. I think it's close to where the current Andrew Jackson Elementary School is. But when you think about education and being educated in a one-room school, what's powerful about education in the Black community? What does it get our community that you have seen since the days when it was the Nashville schools and the county schools to where we are now, where it's desegregated? But is education an important part of growth?
Extremely important in growth, where the whole community used to become involved in the school. The school, there were two institutions that was important in the community, especially the Black community, and that was the schoolhouse and the church house. Stateland Elementary was here that, as I said earlier, where everybody in those communities knew something about, they were supportive of Stateland Elementary. There were groups called 4-H Club, and I don't even know whether we have that or not. That was something that was part of the schoolhouse, where it was just something special, because people saw people understood the importance of education, and they pointed that out to people, emphasized to young people from the time that they were, even before they would go to school. You know, before I went to first grade, I knew how to write my name. Although when I was in first grade, we didn't have a telephone, so I didn't have a telephone number to remember. But I knew how to write my name. I knew my address. So all of that's still important now. Is you teach a child. You teach a child, you educate a child before they become formally educated in the schools. And I think Stalen Elementary was a great school. You know, eventually that particular building that I was describing was shut down, and because of the desegregation and the students started going to Andrew Jackson School. And
wow, this is so powerful. I'm sorry, I'm like over here in wow, in awe. I'm sorry, John. Like just to listen to you is inspirational. And we talked about that yesterday, right? We talked about like what school should look like for children. I want you to elaborate on that a little bit. You talked about the inspiration that we should be instilling in children in order for them to be successful. So if you don't mind, I'd like to hear a little bit more about that.
I'm just thinking about is growing up in schools that would always be what they would call field day, where parents would come together with, and whether they had children or not in school, they would be there to different activities during the school year, where people would come and they would listen. Children would make their presentations, and they would have a reading contest and spelling contest and all of that, where children would feel proud to be able to present themselves, not only to their parents but also to the community. Yeah. And children were inspiring other children, or children were inspired by other children.
Yeah.
I didn't, I couldn't wait to outspell the person in the classroom with me. And I would study, we would words, and my parents would give us a word, and you would not only spell it, but you also had to write it down. And then my mother would tell me, now you have a word, now tell me what that word means. Or make a sentence out of that word.
Yes.
So all of those are things. I don't think there is a way to support education. There are ways to doing that, and we have to determine which is the best ways that what would work. I had a wonderful opportunity when I was working at the DuPont company as to be a pencil partner to McKissick School. And I had a chance to work with a wonderful principal, Mrs. Lovett, and to be able to see them working with some of the children. It was a school, it was elementary, I think, 1st through the 6th grade, I believe, on that. And to see the how much individual attention they would give to students. And also, I think that was the first time when they really started having ESL students. Was at McKissick, and to be able to work with those young people. And I have some pictures of them on my Facebook with some of those young people that was here, and we were trying to be able to integrate them within the student body.
Mhm.
But the thing that about when you start integrating, you don't give up yourself. I
Yeah.
try to get them to be sure to maintain their own identity, and
Yeah.
this is the same thing with Black people. We still should be proud of ourselves. That shouldn't just be some rhetorical. I'm Black and I'm proud. Well, that's something within you that
Yes.
you got to be proud about. That's something that you just don't have to throw up in someone else's
Mm-hmm.
face. That's something that you show. You feel it and you just show it. The way you behave yourself is how if you really proud of yourself.
We heard that from Brother Kwame.
Yes. Yes. And man, like it's almost time.
It went on mute, Sonya.
I said, it's just amazing to hear you say that, because so many people are trying to take away our history. They're trying to take away and hide or cover up the fact of things that have been done to us. I'm sure you've heard of all of the anti-CRT things, the critical race theory, the local government here in Tennessee doesn't want certain conversations, certain literature in school to talk about the things that happen to Black people. And those are the things that, as we've had this conversation today, those are things we can't forget, because they often find another way to do it to us. I heard you say earlier, some of those things were legal. Well, a lot of those things were legal back then. It was legal to treat Black people like that. And as time is drawing near, that's happening to us again, Mr. Horsley. Like the repeat of history is happening again.
Right. But I want to get back into that critical race theory. I've had the opportunity to work with a wonderful lady, white lady, Mary Margaret Randall. I think she's Mary Margaret Sullivan now. She had a group, it was called One Voice Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
And I would go to schools that were predominantly white, Bentra, Minnesota, some of the predominantly white schools. But I was pleased at how they would receive the message.
Mm-hmm.
And what I would tell them, I'm not there to talk about your grandparents and your grandparents' parents and all. I would tell them what my experience that I lived grew up. I was born and I grew up in a segregated society. With what they could do. Yes. And I'd mention to people what they could do, not what they couldn't do. They can't undo what was done. Right. But mm-hmm. what they can do going forward. What mm-hmm. can they be a part of it? Just knowing what happened in the past, it's not going to make the world better. It's what they can do. If they're really concerned, if they think that how Black people was treated generations ago was bad, now what are you going to do today to make life better for everyone now? You can be a part of it. You can be a part of the hundreds of white students that was part of the Freedom Rides. Mm-hmm. The people that was involved in the Nashville sit-ins. That mm-hmm. I mentioned a person, David Kolchuk, mm-hmm. who's a student at Vanderbilt, and I think he was when President Obama was elected. I think he appointed him to a position in his cabinet, and mm-hmm. there are so many people that said, "Okay, I can't." What happened in the past, I didn't have anything to do with it. I regret it. But then because you regret it, that's not enough. What can you do to help make life better? What can you do as far as who can you associate yourself with? How can, politically, economically, what can I do to make sure that we can, that when we say that our community is one community under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, how can you make that a reality?
It's beautiful. John, do you have anything else in closing?
If you could just talk about that transition. We were reading up when they first passed the Brown versus Board of Education. We read that they were updating Black schools. They created a whole new statement. The communities like Hopewell were getting better schools. And then 3 years later, they closed down Hopewell because of the deep. But how was the transition of desegregation, like going from your one room school to transitioning into better schools in the county, but then also transitioning in to the desegregation process, and so going to school with kids who didn't look like you for the first time?
Well, they started upgrading the schools. They were trying to get away from the desegregation. They said, well, if we build them a new school, they won't go to Andrew Jackson School. And you would see that all up through Nashville, even in West Nashville, in areas that were more, similar to out in the county part. They said, well, but they sort of outsmarted themselves, and so but then thanks to people like A.Z. Kelly saying, well, that's not the purpose of the 1954 law. It says that the schools got to be desegregated, and he said, well, if you don't want to send the Black kids to Stateland, well, why don't you send them? I mean, Andrew Jackson, why don't you send the white kids to Stateland? We got this fine school. It looks, matter of fact, it's looked better than Andrew Jackson. So eventually they started sending, we just started with first grade. Then it was second grade. The first graders became second graders. They never did send just say everybody's going to Andrew Jackson. So it went up. It was at 1 year, 1 grade a year. Eventually, they closed down this new school, the new Stateland Elementary. I think they've used it for just about everything. But also that would happen even in Old Hickory, where they had this Old Hickory a school. They used to call it School for Colors, and all that. They would send them to Hopewell community, to Stateland School. That was preventing them to go into Old Hickory Elementary, so the new school, although it was wonderful, I never thought if I could go to a school, the class, you had a room for the first graders, the second graders, your own restrooms and a cafeteria and all of that. That was wonderful. That was a wonderful experience. But it really wasn't there to be wonderful for the Black people. It was there for a purpose, and that was trying to prevent the desegregation of predominantly white schools.
Wow.
I know.
Feel like
the games we play.
Yes. The games we play. I'm looking at the time, like this whole experience has been wonderful, and it's about time for us to wrap it up. So I want to give you an opportunity to give any last words before we go. Any last words of inspiration or encouragement to the parents who are growing this movement with us.
I would just try to inspire people to stay focused. And I say to young people and others, be careful with the message that you hear, and pay attention to the messenger, because every messenger, you have to understand whether that message really benefits you or not. And especially young people, don't pay attention to the messenger, even if the messenger is someone that look like you. Listen to the to the message, and determine for yourself whether that really is something, whether it's right or wrong. I appreciate being here with you and certainly with John Little, and to listen to you, and to be inspired from what I know that you are doing in the community. That what people say and what they think matters, and then don't try to be so influenced by what someone else is doing. I try and stay in my own lane. I know there are things that I can't do, and there are other people can do it better, and I try and be supportive. You don't have to be a leader to have an impact. You can just be there to encourage others. Like I have been encouraged in here, and I mentioned people, in the past, some of the names that I mentioned, some of the great men and women that I've had to been blessed to be in their presence. One of the recently out in this area, they have the Donaldson Hermitage neighborhood alliance, and I was very proud that they established what would be called the Donaldson Hermitage Neighborhood Alliance Vencen Horsley Humanitarian Award. And that would be given to someone in the Old Hickory and Hermitage and Donaldson every year. This is for 2021. It was presented to Phil Ponder, a fine man that he was had a wonderful military career. He served on the Metro Council for 2 terms, and he's a wonderful artist. I think a lot of homes that have his prints on there. So every year that there will be someone in the Old Hickory, Donaldson, and Hermitage would be the recipient of the Vencen Horsley Humanitarian Award. And there's so many wonderful people in these communities, people in education, people in politics. There are people within in the religious community and all of that. And so I'd be very proud to be associated with them.
Thank you so much. Well, we're very proud of being associated with you. It is a privilege. It's an honor. We thank you again for sharing your time, this precious time, with our families. And we want to thank everybody for joining us today. We just saw fit to honor Mr. Horsley for the work that he's done. and just for the support that he is giving us. But I want to make sure that we let everybody know like what's going on in the up and coming week. We will be going to the state capitol.
Mhm.
We're organizing parents, and we are going to have a day on the Hill next Wednesday. John, next Wednesday. I get my dates wrong. February 23rd. Inbox us, email us if you want to join us. We'll be up there all day. Like I told a group of 25 parents last night, we're gonna have lunch. We're gonna have some lunch.
Yep.
We're meeting up. We can give you that information on where we are meeting, and give you the details, so that you guys can join us. And John, we'll do access denied from there. So you guys can see what's going on. So we're not going to cancel access denied. It might be a little bit more abbreviated, but we're going to make sure we bring access
live
denied
and direct
to the Hill live.
Right. We're not denying access on the Capitol.
Anything else, John, you want to add before we close out?
I just think the things you said, like, knowing our history helps us not make the same mistakes, and just watching the journey from Old Hickory to downtown Nashville, to being able to come back in your community and be honored, but also like keeping your foot on the gas to say, I think your quote was, pay attention to the messenger, ask yourself, does this message benefit you? And I think that's a good thing to bring. Like, everything that glitter isn't gold, definitely in education. We have a long way to go. There are a lot of parents who are listening. So I think this has been good, not only about civil rights and Black history, but to connect it to their own education journey.
Yes, I think I'm going to leave here with Mr. Horsley said that we have to be specific. He said Black lives matter, Black businesses matter, Black education matters. And that is just really making me think really deep. Like he said, make sure you specific. You call those things and be not as they were, as the church folks would say. You got to be specific. Be careful for nothing, but in everything through prayer and supplication, make your request be known unto God. And I believe you have to also do that with people. So thank you guys for joining us. And we will see you on next Wednesday at the Capitol.
Thank you.
Thank you.